Sarah, thanks Stephen. Thanks everyone for coming. I'm the CEO of the Pillar Project, and I do try to explain this stuff in plain English. I think your survey just showed that 70% of people think they understand blockchain, and maybe a little overconfident there, as things tend to change every day. And my goal today is to talk about tokens. So to put it in context, our digital journey started with computers, which could make data. We could put data on computers and make those the use of data better, faster, and cheaper. And then came the World Wide Web, which let us publish content better, faster, and cheaper. And now with the blockchain, we will be able to do transactions better, faster, and cheaper. So it's a good thing, but it's hard to start planning it until we first understand it, and second, lay the groundwork at the city and government level to be able to use these innovations. So rather than jumping into applications, I want to lay that groundwork. Much of what you're going to hear is at thetokenhandbook.com. And I want to start by differentiating between a coin and a token. So the two things we want to do to make transactions better, faster, and cheaper is we need money and we need tokens. This is not a talk on money. So the coins we have that you've heard of, cryptocurrencies, are a general purpose unit of value in a system like a blockchain. The pound is a general purpose unit of value in a particular belief system, as is the dollar and other currencies. A token represents a specific unit of value with a specific purpose inside of a system. In fact, a token can't even go across systems, something coins generally can't. So the way to think about a token is it's similar to a poker chip. You would go to the cashier and get your poker chips at the casino, and then you could use that token as a specific purpose, special purpose unit of value inside the casino ecosystem. And the people who accept your tokens don't really want the tokens, they want money, so they bring them back to the cashier where they can get money for them. Now sometimes it's reusable like that, and sometimes it's a one-time use thing, like when you use a barcode to get on an airplane or take a trip or go to a concert. That's a one-time use. So there have been tokens in use for thousands of years. Some of us may have used these kinds of physical tokens in the past. Most tokens are now digital, and you have many of them in your wallet right now. They, in some cases, let you start your car, open your door, buy something, get into a hotel room. They give you access in many cases, but they can also represent value. So we've had about $20 billion worth of token sales in the last 14 months or so. And many of those are still active, many are already gone, but they promise to change the way we transact. This is a token smart contract. This is the address for the Pillar Project token smart contract. If you send it Ether, you can get tokens back. That was in the past, that's over, and now it's in circulation. Now this is how tokens break down. So we have currencies on the left, and we have many different kinds of tokens. And I won't, I only have 25 minutes left, so I'm going to go over a few of the use cases for these kinds of tokens. It's not a full explanation of all these categories. We have asset tokens that carry the value that they're supposed to represent, like gold, for example, diamonds, real estate. Now, for that, you have to understand that ownership of the token represents ownership of the physical thing in the real world. And we don't have the legal framework for that in most countries yet. So this is one of the things we're working on, to have ownership actually of, when you own the token, you actually own the object, and it would be similar to what do you need to own a piece of land in the UK. You need a lot of paperwork, you need agreement from the government, you need maybe title and maybe some pieces of paper, and all that we want to transfer into the token. We have access tokens. Most of the ICOs we've seen are access tokens, where you use the token to get into the system and use the features of the system. We also have what I call tickets. A ticket is, as opposed to many of the tokens that we make today, most tokens are fixed number of tokens, and that means that the price is volatile. A ticket is a fixed price and has an unlimited number of, there are an unlimited number of any particular kind of ticket, and they have a fixed price. So to ride a bus, you would want a ticket. You wouldn't want a token that has a volatility to the price, right? We want to have a stable price on tickets, and there are many kinds of tickets. There are more kinds of tickets than there are assets and other limited supply things. So we're working on defining cryptographic or blockchain-based tickets, and that we don't have yet, but we are working on it. So an example would be a prescription. You'd want a single kind of token to represent a prescription. It's not transferable, but it could be used in many different systems. The same way that the barcode, the UPC code on a, when you buy something at the store, that barcode is like a rail that goes across systems and carries information across systems. That's what we want these tickets to be. A unit of energy, like a kilowatt minute, should be on a ticket, a blockchain-based ticket that can then go through many phases of distribution and logic, adding intelligence to that token so it can be used in a smart home or a smart building. So this is an area of research that we don't have yet. Now, today's tokens let us have access to things and also let us do interesting things. This one lets us bet on outcomes. This is a prediction market that helps us. These are called skin in the game coins. This market gives us information rather than experts predicting what a particular piece of art will sell for before the auction. We can use an information market, a prediction market, and get people to use a skin in the game token that gives them a reward for being right. And this lets us power crowdsourcing of data in ways that will change fundamentally the way we run many businesses and many governments. We could use crowdsourcing of data, for example, to help us better do monetary policy with more real-time information from the crowd rather than looking in the rear view mirror. So betting and prediction markets are a big important part of this revolution, and we'll be able to get that information better, faster, and cheaper than we can with non-blockchain technology. This is a market for data with, again, a skin in the game coin. And I want to give you, not this example, but a simpler example so everybody can understand. You've used maybe TripAdvisor or Hotels.com or Booking.com to get a hotel room, right? And you see a lot of reviews on those sites, but those reviews don't cost anybody anything. They can make up a bunch of reviews. They can tell people to just put fake reviews. They can even tell people to put bad reviews on their competitors' hotels, right? And this is what we call list curation. So we're now creating a new class of tokens that are called token curated registries. And a token curated registry is just a list, but it's curated with a game that has a financial reward for being right and a financial penalty for being wrong. And in fact, this is one too. Here's another one for journalism. I'm going to stick with the hotel example. So in this game, we take a particular category, let's say 3-star hotels in Paris. There are many categories for hotels. Let's say 3-star hotels in Paris or business hotels in London, whatever you like. And in each category, a bunch of people who know that city and have stayed in those hotels are curating. And when a new hotel says, hey, I want to be on that list, I want to be in the top 10 list, the hotel puts up money. Let's say 200 tokens. It says, all right, I'll buy the tokens. I'll put up the 200 tokens. I offer my hotel for your consideration. And then the community bets on whether that hotel should be in the top 10 list or not. And if the answer, the majority says yes, then it goes into the list, and the people who voted against it lose their money, and the people who say yes, the winners, all take all the cash, including the 200 tokens that the hotel put up. To bet, you must stake money. So you might have to put up 20 or 50 tokens yourself to make that, to vote. That means if you're in the no camp and the answer is yes, you lose your tokens. So it costs you money to be wrong. And in these token curated registries, we are able now to change the business model of many, many industries. For example, journalism, which has traditionally relied on advertising, we can now use a token curated economy to power journalism. And that's what they're doing at Civil. It's what they're doing at Masari for financial data. This would be like the reporting data that companies, private and public, report to create transparency in the market for investors. This is a token curated registry to give better quality data, and it costs you money to be wrong, and you are rewarded if you're right. This is just a small few examples of token curated registries. There are actually many of these kinds of token games, and it comes under the category of what we call mechanism design. Mechanism design is creating virtuous games that give us the outcomes we want with economic incentives rather than just rules. It gives us an incentive to play the game and to play it honestly and toward the outcomes that the game designers want. So for ICOs, which I assume people have heard about ICOs, another kind of token is an ICO for company finance. This hasn't really been done yet before because ICOs have been for projects, but for company, what you want is equity. You want to sell equity. And today, if you're a startup and you want to sell equity, you go to a lawyer's office, you sit down, you write everything down. It costs you about maybe £100,000 to do an equity offering on paper, and then it's not tradable. And I have a for-profit company as well. It's called 2030, and we are in the FCA Sandbox Cohort 4 right now in a test to issue equity as a token. So you buy stock on your phone and you receive the token. And what makes that different is that we don't need a central registrar anymore. The blockchain itself is the registrar, is the custodian, so that all you need is your password and you're able to own. Ownership has to be redefined so that you own the shares if you own the token. And that has already gotten us a memorandum of understanding with the London Stock Exchange to do some pilot projects for them to put the ownership of private companies, larger growth and private equity companies, onto tokens for exchanging. So this is all an experiment, and we plan to not only issue tokens fully licensed and approved by the FCA, but then go back into the sandbox next year and trade. So we'll be bringing liquidity to private equity. If you understand the private equity markets, you understand that's a big deal because these are markets that are very illiquid. So in the realm of transactions, we have a lot of illiquid markets that we can unlock. That's in fact what banks do. Banks take your collateral and make it liquid, right? We can unlock the value in assets and make it tradable and bring liquidity to markets by not using huge institutions to do it, but by giving people the power through blockchain to trade things and issue loans or even issue insurance from person to person. These examples are huge disruptive opportunities that we now have, and we have to lay the groundwork for us to be able to do that kind of innovation. So these debt, equity, and derivatives are all securities, and we are working with the FCA. We expect to be working with the SEC in the United States to help pave the way for tokenization of securities. In addition, we'll be working on tokenizing, many people are working on tokenizing real estate, licensing, and many other things. So this is how I think it will kind of break down. I think that mostly we'll have the same kinds of tokens as we have, the same percentages of tokens as we have in the real world. What I'm saying is there's a chance we might just tokenize everything and make it tradable from person to person using blockchain and get away from these huge centralized markets. This will make all of this $300 trillion of value in the world trade better, faster, and cheaper. it's probably a big deal. So understanding tokens and tokenomics is going to probably end up being like a second year class at many universities in the coming years. It's something we all are going to need to pay attention to. And I believe that, you know, despite the fact that cryptocurrencies have been hit pretty hard, the promise of tokens and making transactions better, faster, and cheaper is tremendous. So just quickly, you know, rather than going through a lot of, I was at a Smart Cities conference last week, and they wanted a lot of use cases and cool ideas for cool apps that we can create. And I tell them, when I sit down to design a token or a system or an economic system that's going to use tokens, we don't go to a prototype. We don't go into the lab and start sketching it out and prototyping it. We go right to the lawyers' offices and talk with lawyers about whether we'll be able to get away with this or get put in jail if we do it. It's many, many conversations with expensive lawyers, and that's because we don't have a foundation at the city and state and international levels to even know whether any of these things we want to do are legitimate. We'll end up in jail. There's a lot of gray area, and there's a lot of old legal structures that have to be re-examined. And they're pretty much everywhere from tax to securities to lending to just how you get a taxi. All of these things, it's now time to re-examine for the so that we can create the infrastructure of the 21st century that will let us do everything better, faster, and cheaper. So I say that there are 4 pillars of these economies, and the first thing we need is digital identity that people can control and yet is valid and can't be duplicated. We need to redefine ownership to take tokens into account. This is non-trivial in a large, highly political country. They've already done it in Estonia. It took about a day to redefine ownership and to get digital self-sovereign identities in Estonia. Didn't take very long. But in the UK, in the United States, in larger countries, it takes a lot more work. And I hope that some people in this room will help us lay these foundations so we then can work on those cool applications. We need tradability. That's a gray area of the law. Many of the things we want to trade have never been traded before. And we have to work with legislators to redefine tradability. And then finally, we need stable coins. And this is why we want to talk with central banks to create stable coins that represent currency, fiat currency, that we can all use and count on, because that's the coin of the land. And we don't want to have currency risk when we use contracts. We want to use stable currencies for contracts and agreements.